My name is Hazel Millisham and this is the Light on Leeds podcast. Leeds 2023 is letting culture loose throughout 2023. It's a year of culture and it's aiming to show off Leeds to the world, from dance to design, poetry to pop and sculpture to sport. On this week's episode of Light on Leeds, I chatted with Kully Thiarai, the creative director and CEO of Leeds 2023. She told me all about the vision behind the Year of Culture, its origin story, and what the mission aims to achieve. Enjoy! On this episode of the Light on Leeds podcast, I'm thrilled to have Kully Thiarai, who is the creative director and the CEO of Leeds 2023. Hello, Kully. Thank you so much for coming along.
Oh, hello, Hazel, and thanks for inviting me.
Kully, can you, just for anybody who has had their hands over their eyes and ears in the last the last year, I suppose, really, can you tell me a little bit about what Leeds 2023 is and how it came about?
Of course, yeah. Leeds 2023 is a year of culture that's was created as a consequence of the city deciding to bid to be European Capital of Culture back in the day. And some of your listeners may be familiar that Glasgow was a European Capital of Culture, and of course Liverpool in 2008 was European Capital of Culture. And Leeds decided that in 2023 they would like to compete in the competition. But sadly, because of the referendum and us leaving the EU, UK cities were no longer eligible to be in the competition, and the announcement of that came just days before the interviews were going to take place with the European Union. So it was a devastating blow for the city. But it decided after reflection that it would do it anyway. So it kept the money that it was going to invest in the European Capital of Culture in place, and set up an independent trust to run the programme. And I was lucky enough to be recruited as their creative director and CEO to work up the fuller ideas, build on the work that had been done for the bid book and the programme, and deliver a year of culture in 2023.
Wow. So I imagine that at that point when you got that decision, a lot of work had already been done.
Yeah, I mean, the project, the sort of idea originally to bid for European Capital of Culture goes back to 2014, and there was a lot of people coming together, really working hard on what they wanted to do as part of that programme. Loads of brilliant ideas that were submitted and made it into the bid book. And in fact, some of them are being delivered in the year now. So it's got a long history, and a lot of people who've contributed and worked really, really hard to get us to this moment.
Yeah, of course. And you had the Awakening in January, which was the big opening of Leeds 2023. Can you tell me a little bit about how that all went?
Yeah, we knew that we wanted to really celebrate culture in all its glory as part of this year, and that the opening ceremony needed to be a special moment for the city and to really kick off this year of culture for everybody. It took place at Headingley Rugby Stadium, and part of that was linked to the fact that for us, one of the freedoms that came from not being European Capital Culture was for us to be able to really have a broad sense of what we meant by culture. And for us, that included sport, included food, and included everyday creativity, and not just that sort of sense that people normally think about as culture being, theatre, opera, music, dance. We wanted to kind of really think about all the things that contribute to the cultural life of a city. Mm-hmm. And the Awakening really started 100 days before the actual event on the 7th of January, because in order to get a ticket, we wanted people to submit a piece of art. And part of the reason for thinking about that was to sort of, in recognition that, we all have a creative impulse, we all have a desire to express ourselves and leave a mark. And also that there is extraordinary talent hidden behind every door, behind, in every house. And there's a cultural life that's complex. And we wanted to just mark that somehow. And I guess what it gave us was, thousands of people submitted artworks and thousands of people took part in launching our Year of Culture, which was just an extraordinary event in so many ways. And all of that artwork is now going to be featured on beer mats, on paper bags, and also being exhibited very shortly in sites across the city in our sort of Awakening the Artist exhibition, really. And I guess the day itself, on the 7th of January, we had extraordinary talent from right across the breadth of the city. We had Corinne Bailey Ray, we had Simon Armitage, we had the youngest rock band, the Solar Jets, playing. We had a collision of art forms, Nessun Dorma. We had tub thumping that was, Hope and Social, playing with, Dunstan from Chumbawamba, mixed up with, the chorus of Opera North and the orchestra of Opera North. So there was lots of things that you would expect to be in a celebratory event like that, but kind of done in a new and different way, which we hoped would just shine a light on everything that's brilliant about Leeds and its cultural life.
Wow, fantastic. And have you been surprised yourself at some of the people who've come forward and the sort of cultural offerings that they've brought?
Yeah, I mean, the over 3,000 submissions, are quite an extraordinary eclectic mix. Yeah. And, they're as diverse as the people of the city. We know that there's 170 plus languages spoken in the city, and that, the world is in our city. And, we want to celebrate all of that in how we talk about Leeds, how we celebrate Leeds, and how we get to know each other, engage with each other. And so there is some extraordinary things that are happening out there that sometimes don't get shouted about in quite the way that we might want it to be. And I guess, in a sense, the reason for, the first part of the year is called the Awakening, is in itself, is, I suppose, in a way, us kind of saying to the city, look, there's loads of things here, and we can shout about them more than we currently do. It's not that things don't exist. It's just that sometimes we perhaps don't notice them. So it's awakening, I suppose, in a way, to ourselves, to the city, and shouting about to the rest of the world. And then the part two is framed around the notion of playing, and that's sort of both about it being in the summer months and it being in the public, thinking about the public realm, but also about letting your imagination play. And, we know that as children, we make that so easy for ourselves, but as adults, maybe sometimes we don't daydream in quite the way that we might have done once. And so just unleashing the ability to just be playful with the world and discover new things and try new things out is part of our ambition. And then the third part of the year is framed around dreaming, which is really looking forward and passing the baton on and sort of thinking about, imagining new futures and what we might do together after this year. So we're kind of delivering a 3-act play, I suppose, across the year, and telling a particular story about the city.
Exactly, yeah. A 3-act play is a good way to put it. And of course, your previous role was artistic director and chief executive of the National Theatre in Wales. How are these projects, how are those two things similar, and how are they different?
Oh, yes, I was artistic director of National Theatre Wales. And I guess what's interesting was that when you're running a national company like National Theatre Wales, you're also, it's a huge responsibility to represent a nation, and to also think about locations and places and spaces in the whole of Wales. So, I was privileged enough to be making work on, in stadiums, or in disused old factory spaces, or on beaches and on boats. And I suppose there's something about sort of artists in places and how they open up the possibilities to see things in new and different ways that is absolutely linked to what we're trying to do here. You know, one of the brilliant things about Leeds is that it's not, you know, it's got so much cultural infrastructure here. There's, you know, extraordinary organisations and buildings, and we've got brilliant partners that are both, you know, both independent artists, but also organisations that are working in all sorts of different ways, and we're covering a whole range of art forms. And so there's something really magnificent about being able to work in that collaborative way to really showcase the creative talents of a city beyond what's already here. Our responsibility has been to really think about what can we do together now in 2023 that we haven't been able to do. So part of our way of thinking has been what's the difference Leeds 2023 can make in this year of culture, and how do we go about doing that? And so much of that is about creating original and surprising works, but also working in partnership to build on the knowledge and the ambition that we build across the year, to learn from that and hopefully keep doing that, because we've built both an appetite for it, but also supported people to think and try new things maybe.
Yeah, of course. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because like you said, Leeds has got a lot of like great cultural behemoths already. But it's fantastic when I look at the website and I'm following on social media and I see all of the sort of small cultural things that are going on, because Leeds is so huge, and you know, from one end of the city to another can sort of seem quite far and disparate. So it feels like it's nice to have Leeds 2023 to kind of connect all of these events and people together.
I think so, and also I suppose, you know, the fact that the city decided to do this year of culture anyway was such a transformative decision and quite a bold decision, and in some ways quite unlike Leeds. You know, that what we wanted to do was really think about shining a light on Leeds in a way that perhaps we haven't been able to do as a city before on its cultural landscape. You know, it's brilliantly known for its shopping, for its finance sector, for its tech. But you know, can we do more to tell the story of Leeds through its cultural life? And that's what we want to do. And of course, we've got brilliant organisations like Opera North and the Playhouse, or you know, the galleries and museums, and you know, our dance companies and conservatoires, etc. But there's also something about all the things that are a bit hidden and a bit are perhaps less known about, and we wanted to celebrate all of that. And part of the way we've been thinking about the year has been to, you know, producing original signature moments across the year, like the opening, for example, partnering with key players, large and small, independent organisations, and you know, artists, but also to promote the city and promote the city in and shout about it. So internationally, nationally, and locally. So we've been, you know, we were thrilled to be partnering with the Yorkshire Evening Post. You know, it was brilliant to see the Channel 4 News reporting live from the event at Headingley Stadium. And it's also been fantastic to sort of get coverage for some of the smaller projects we're doing, which are equally important, and not just the big spectacular moments of the year. And that's what we want to try and do.
And do you think as well that, I mean, it would always be a brilliant idea to have Leeds 2023, but particularly because of the period that we've all been in, you know, since 2020, and a lot of artists struggled, and also a lot of people got into their own creativity at home during that period because, you know, you were left at home and it was a nice thing to do. Do you think that it sort of feels like, even though Leeds 2023 is a celebration about Leeds and its culture, it just feels like it's come at a perfect time when we're all emerging from the strange state we've been in the past 3 years?
Yes, I suppose it's really it's been such a challenging time for everybody, and in all sorts of ways, including for the team at Leeds 2023. I started in my job 10 weeks before lockdown, and trying to
Wow.
build an organisation from scratch in this context and raise millions of pounds was hugely challenging.
Mm.
But one of the things that lockdown, I suppose, did was also reveal how important culture was, and how important what artists do day in, day out, how that impacts on what people turned to for solace and for comfort and for getting through it was, films and books and music and going online and joining choirs and making things, baking things, um, you know, looking at nature. Those were things that are all cultural elements of our lives, and sometimes we forget how important they are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't have writers, you didn't have filmmakers, you didn't have technicians, you didn't have green parks and places, our life would be very dull. And actually, in some ways, whilst it was horrendous for the cultural sector, because so many of our freelancers were just not supported by by the sort of structures and systems that exist, and we lost a lot of our creatives, and that is a challenge in terms of recruitment. It was also really powerful reminder of how important those roles are and why it matters.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that's really fascinating is how much, for what is a very, very small amount of money, compared to other levels of government investment, how much the cultural industries and cultural organisations contribute to the economic and social agendas of a city and a place and a country. And so I think, when that's what you mean, I guess, in the context of, it's come at a perfect time, because now more than ever, people have want to be able to participate in things and take part in things and come together and celebrate things, um, and that has an economic impact, a social impact too, and that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And so you talked a little bit about the dreaming, which is kind of stage 3. So is that the part where we'll be thinking about how we will look forward to culture in the city in the future? And are you able to sort of see how what the legacy will be of Leeds 2023?
It's always hard to talk about legacy on one level, because sometimes, the impact of a year of culture like ours is that, if you look back on Liverpool, their sort of journey and their evaluation of what 2018 did, 2008 European Capital of Culture did to the city is profound, really. I mean, obviously, we're not delivering, or not able to deliver on that same scale, because we haven't got the millions that they had. But
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to really look at is, through our partnerships, how are we building legacy? Through some of the many projects, how are we building legacy? The fact that things like the Awakening allowed us to really work with a huge number of artists and creatives and participants, and that number of over 1,000 people were involved in delivery of the Awakening. And so, that legacy also lies in some of the skills that were developed during that time. Those 9, 10, 11-year-olds who form part of the Solar Jets, it's the biggest gig they will have ever done. Wonder what they will end up doing in 10, 15 years' time. And will they be, next Kaiser Chiefs or whatever? There's loads of ways in which legacy can exist that you can't predict.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also lots of direct economic impact that is legacy. We know that for a £20 million programme, there's a 6-to-1 return to the city and an 8-to-1 return for West Yorkshire. We know that our mayor's desire for there to be a crucible of culture, as she describes it, in the region is really important. And so we're kicking off a year that's also followed by Calderdale doing cultural events and Wakefield doing cultural events as years, celebratory years. And of course, Bradford is UK City of Culture in 2025. So there's huge amount of energy around culture, and I think there's ways in which what we're learning and what we're doing and how we share that insight and practice and skill up people will have huge legacy benefits for this city and for the region. And we're working very, very closely with the City Council, particularly around how we support their 10-year cultural strategy and what they build on in terms of the learning from this year.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm going to imagine, Kully, that you must have spent quite a lot of time in Leeds over the last however long.
Well, I've been in Yorkshire since 1982, and I spent 20 years living in Bradford, and before going to Wales, I lived in Leeds. So before going to Wales, to run National Theatre of Wales, I was living in Leeds myself. So I feel like this is my city, and certainly my region. So it's a bit like coming home for me. And in fact, it was Leeds that gave me my first, that first invited me to get involved in the arts. At Red Ladder, when they rang me up, but I was at university in Bradford, and I was just close to graduating and part of my degree, I was also qualifying as a social worker, and I ended up having a phone call from Red Ladder Theatre Company that was reinventing itself in its focus from being a touring show, touring company that went to clubs and communities, to focusing its work on young people and wanting to work in youth clubs, etc. And that's how I started. So I feel like this is also my chance to open up doors and possibilities and create opportunities for, a generation, like, in the way that opportunities I found ways in, because I had little or no access to the arts when I was growing up. So, it's a privilege to be in this position, to be able to sort of recognise that you can open doors for people and shine a light on things that perhaps they might not otherwise have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've kind of come full circle, really. So you're definitely qualified to answer the 3 questions I ask every guest. The first one being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
Oh my goodness! I know you gave me these questions ages ago, but it's always really, really hard to answer these questions. I think in the end it's the people, isn't it? It's the people that make a city.
Yeah.
And I think there's extraordinary passion and extraordinary talent and extraordinary energy here. And I love that for it. I love it for that. I guess that's the best thing about Leeds.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And if you had to choose something not so great about the city, what would you choose?
It's for such a large city, I think, the fact that we don't have an integrated transport system is really problematic.
Yeah.
The fact that we end up, that if you want to go from North Leeds to South, to South Leeds, or not necessarily North Leeds to South, from North Leeds to East Leeds, that you have to come through the city centre to go out again. It's just the ease of getting about, I suppose. I mean, the counterpoint to that is that it feels like a very walkable city. It doesn't feel huge and imposing in that way, and you can get around quite quickly. But I do think we really do miss, a tube-like, tram-like system that would be so brilliant if we had it. And we've had so many opportunities where it's just not been made possible. So, yeah, transport is an issue.
Yeah, that comes up, I would say,
probably forever.
Yeah. And if somebody had been a resident of Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
I've been thinking about this question, and I was out of the city for 4 years, and it's changed so much. I mean, obviously, it's changed a lot since I first moved here, lived here, but there's so much going on. I just feel like it's impossible to keep up with some of the, I mean, obviously things like, this sort of Hyde Park picture house that's reopening is just a beautiful gem, but everybody should know about that already,
Yeah.
And then there's sort of, I'd encourage people to kind of check out the Awakening the Artist inside, because that's in the Merrion Centre, and if you go into that space, it'll just be wonderful because of the views that you can get of the city from there. So there's all sorts of hidden gems, but and I think the development of Holbeck and Temple Works, again, they're not at the moment accessible, but all of that potentially is an extraordinary heritage history of the city. But there'll always be nooks and crannies to discover. And I guess the other thing I would say to someone who's lived here for a long time is just look up. We tend to just not see the extraordinary buildings and the history of these buildings if you don't. If you raise your eyes a bit higher up as you're walking through streets, and there's some amazing stuff to look at.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, sometimes you're walking around Leeds, and if you do look up, it's like there are palaces on top of the shops.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kully, I always ask guests if they have a Leeds-based musician or artist track that they would like to feature at the end of the podcast. Can you tell me what you've chosen and why you've gone with that choice?
So I've chosen Ntantu and his track Tomorrow, and I guess it's a bit naughty of me choosing that because he first did it for us as part of a year to go video that we made, and it just encapsulated something quite energetic. And then, of course, it became the opening number of our opening show, The Awakening. So it feels like it'll be one of those songs that I will hold very close to my heart forever. And I think in this version, he's just done such an extraordinary job. It's just beautiful.
It really is a fantastic track. And what will you be doing with the rest of your day today?
I have to jump back into meetings this afternoon, and then over the weekend I'm going to be at the Rhinos game, and then also seeing a cultural sort of R&D event of Akila Bertram's show.
Wow, fantastic. That sounds like a good weekend to me. Thank you so very much for coming along and speaking to me.
It's been my pleasure.
Put links in the podcast notes so that people know where to go to look for things and how to get involved.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me, Hazel.
Thank you so much. It was fascinating to hear all about Leeds 2023 from Kully. As always, there are lots of links in the podcast notes where you can find ways to join in. Kully chose to feature the song Tomorrow by Ntantu, which was created to be part of The Awakening. It's a fantastic track, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Speak soon, Leeds.
Tomorrow, tomorrow, so many nights I spent crafting, trying to catch my breath, thinking about tomorrow, so many nights I spent working, but you know, my friend, there's gonna be tomorrow, where you go, baby, leave your stress now, no more letdowns, we are blessed now, where you go, baby, thinking about you daily, yesterday was some news to you, so today you know what to do. Live your life like there is no tomorrow. Live your life like there is no tomorrow. When I was a little young boy, I know world that we're equal, man. Can't forget about all my queens, Sassy, bougie, all my G's. Write your movie and follow the script. Live for the present, tomorrow's a gift.
Live your life like there is no tomorrow.